Hello, good morning, everyone. So this is last topic of our this series, which is based on Streamlit. Earlier, we have talked about session state, and we also talked about a couple of callback functions, which we can use to call the Python functions. Now, the last topic is application cache or the Streamlit cache. So, how it is different from the session state? That is one of the most important concept you should know. So we have seen in case of the session state, if there is a user 1 and then there is a user 2, user 3 and user 4, I mean, you can refer this nice diagram. So all these four users are having their own session state. They don't overlap with each other. So whatever variables or whatever values the user 1 will be having, they are actually different from the user 2. And if you have, let's say, even the user 1 is accessing his application in first tab, if he is opening his second tab, then also the session will be different. Okay, so this is the definition of session state. But in case of application cache, what is happening is this is a cache which is at the application level where all the users are accessing the resources. Let's say if your application is deployed on a server, so what will happen is all the variables which are stored in the cache will be accessible by user 1, 2, 3 and 4, meaning they are actually shared among the different users. Okay, I hope that is clear. So let's say we have some API call which is costly, and what we can do is if that API cost is pulling some image, then once that image is pulled up or requested by user 1, it will be put in the application cache. Now when the user 2 or 3 wants to access the same wants to call the same API, then what will happen is instead of again invoking or calling the API, it will first go to the cache. If that image is there, then it will take that image and it will serve the user 2 and 3. So this is how the session state and application cache are different to each other. And you should be very careful that in which situation you have to use session state and in which you have to use the application cache. All right. So talking more about that, we have already seen uh, we have understood the concept of caching. Now what is caching is also clear. What are the benefits? I mean, as I said, let's say if you have some API calls in your application and all those users, the users who are using that application and those images or those resources or those API calls are actually common. They are not specific to user. Okay, so that's the key difference. If you are if you are calling some API or if you are using some resources which are not specific to a user or its session, then they are saved in the application cache. For example, let's say we have an application which is giving the information about your let's say your share market. Okay, so the prices, if all the users start invoking the same API, the load on the server will increase. At the same time, the cost of API will also increase, and it will also make your application slow. So what we can do is we can define some cache so that whenever the first user has pulled the price of, let's say, Tata Motors, then it will pull that particular request, it will pull that particular information, and it will put in the application. So I mean, share market is just one vague example, but I think you have got the concept. All right. So okay, how to define these cache? Then there are two type of decorators we need to use. First is the cache data, other is the cache resource. So now we will see what is the difference between these two decorators. Both are being used to store your values in the cache. Okay, let me open this code now. Let me zoom a bit. All right. So let me first comment the second part. And in this part, what we are doing is we are using the cache. So as I said, when you want to use the cache data, what you have to do is you have to use this decorator just above your function. This is my function which I want that it should not be called again and again, and whatever the response it is giving, whatever object it is returning, that should be cached. So when I am defining my function, just above that, I need to use this decorator saying whether it's a cache data or it's basically your cache resource. Okay. So in the first instance, what we are doing is we are making using of cache data. Okay. So this is how. So this is an example where what we are doing is we are importing Streamlit request and time, and we have defined this function, which is when this API URL is given, it goes to that particular URL and it make a get request, it get the response, and then we are waiting for the 5 seconds, and then whatever response we have got, we are actually converting it into the JSON and returning. Okay, and this is the data which is being returned, and then I am writing that data on my Streamlit application. Other than that, what do I have is st.image. So whatever data which has been received, it's actually an image. So I'm showing that image with the help of this widget, which is st.image. And then we also have one button so that we can reload the page again and again and test whether that image is getting saved in the cache or not. So let me first activate my environment. I'm using venv. My virtual environment is activated. Let me run this. This is caching.py. Superb. On the localhost 8501. So you could see it was fetching data. Okay. So the response is like this one is what? This is st.write data. And in the data, I have two things. I have message and I have status as success. Okay. And in the below, you can see an image of a dog. So this API basically gives you the image of a dog. So when we invoke this particular URL, an image of a dog will be returned. All right. So now what I have done is I have removed. Okay. Let me first remove this one. Let me comment cache, and if I reload, what I will see a different dog. If I hit reload again, so when I'm clicking this button, what is happening, because this is an event, right? This the user is interacting with the application, with the interface. Your all the code from top to the bottom will be rerun. So whenever I'm clicking this one, my code is getting rerun, and every time I'm hitting this API, every time I'm hitting this API, and you can see every time I'm getting a different image. So what it will do, it will fetch the image, it will wait for 5 seconds, and then it will display the image. Right now, see the difference if I'm using this particular decorator, which is cache data. Now if I do a refresh, I have got this image. Now again, now you can see the response which I am getting is very quick, because my Streamlit is going to this particular method. It is saying that it is cached. Okay, this the returned object or the returned response is actually getting cached. So first of all, it will come and see whether that particular request or response is already there or not. So how it will come to know? It will come to know with the help of this parameter. So basically, this Streamlit has a hash table where it keeps record of all the arguments. So as long as my argument is same, argument for this particular method is same, and my code has not changed, what it will do is it will go into the cache and it will see whether the image or the response for this request is already there or not. If it is there, it will show the same response. I hope this is now clear. So that was my first case. And where do we use this cache data? We use the cache data where my object is serializable, meaning, so what it actually does is, instead of saving the exact response, it creates a copy of that particular object and then it saves it in the cache. Okay, so examples like if you are returning string, if you are returning JSON, all these kind of objects which are serializable, they are saved in the cache with the copy, and you should always say save them in the cache data. On the other hand, let me comment this one. On the other hand, we have couple of objects, which are like not serializable, which are non-serializable. So what I will be doing, this is that example. What I am doing, I am creating a class of AI model, and within the class I have this initialization method, init method. What it will do is it will wait for 5 seconds, and then it will self.load model, and then it has another function. So this is my class. Now this is my function. Okay, so the function name is load model. So what this load model function will do, it will create one instance of this class, and then it will return the model. So when you create the instance, this initialization method will be invoked, and the object of the model will be created, and it will be returned. So my model is equal to load model. Okay, so here I'm saving that instance. This is the method. First, the control will go at the load model method. It will create the instance of this class, and then it will return the model. Okay, and then what we are doing is, if there is a model, then I am writing that model on my interface, and the button again. So you can see this time we are actually not passing, or not trying to save any string or a JSON kind of object. Rather, this is a class. When there is a class object, I cannot actually create a copy of it and save in the cache. So what I will be doing is, I will be creating an exact copy, the same object I will be storing in my cache. Okay, so that's why we are saying this is not serializable. So such objects are actually are cached with the help of the cache resource decorator. Okay, so let me again comment this code, and if I run, what will happen? So model loaded. Okay, it took some time, it took 5 seconds. Now if I do again reload, again it will go and execute everything, and it will load. Okay, so this is taking, every time it will take 5 seconds, because every time it is going and creating the instance of this class. What I can do for such objects, for such methods which are returning such objects like model or objects, I can use another decorator, which is cache resource. So if I enable that, along with that, what I can do is, there are couple of more things like show spinner. It will show you a spinner, and it will say like loading model. Okay, so let me run this again. So loading model, so this is what I did, show spinner equal to loading model. So it was showing the spinner with the loading model text. Now when I click this particular button, what will happen, it will not create the object again and again. Rather, it will pull the object from the cache. I hope this is now crystal clear. And let me check if I have covered everything. We have then customizing the cache behavior. Okay, we have custom spinner. We have talked about time to live. Other thing what we can do is, we can also define time to live, meaning, let's say there is another parameter like TTL, and I can say the time to live for this particular cache is 60 seconds. I think this is in seconds. Yeah. So what will happen? It will store the objects only for the 60 seconds, and then after they will become stale, or and they will be erased. So I mean, that can be 600, or that depends on, let's say if you want to refresh our stock market data within every 5 minutes, then accordingly 5 into 60, 65 to 30, that will be 300 seconds. Okay, so that depends on the kind of application, and what type of, how much timeout is good for you. The other one is this, we have talked about maximum entries. Similarly, there is another parameter which is like maximum entries, which means that I can only store maximum of 10 entries in my cache. Once that is reached, that threshold is reached, and if I'm trying to put the 11th one, the oldest one will be deleted from the memory. I think this is now clear. I mean, these concepts are actually very important. if you are building POCs, so I mean the developer will be creating POC on his machine, then we most of the time we will be dealing with the session state. But now I mean I hope you know the difference between the session state and your caching. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comment. Thank you so much, guys.